Welcome back to Your 1230, the only podcast where our guests tell their story with the help of 12 questions in only 30 minutes. I'm your host, Mike Salitro, and today we are really excited to be joined by Sam Moses. With a passion for entrepreneurship from a very young age, Sam is the founder and CEO of Socrates Custom Socks, a company based in Boca Raton, Florida, which specializes in producing the highest quality custom socks at the fastest turnaround time. With over 4,000 clients, Socrates has emerged as the industry leader in its field with clients in the US, Germany, France, Iceland, UK, Israel, and Canada. With a keen eye for both the small details and big picture approach to business, Sam is sought out for advice on various business topics such as business strategy, team leadership, business communication, marketing, and organizational culture. Sam, welcome. We are really excited to be speaking with you.
Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be on.
Of course, of course. There's a lot of good things in that bio. The one that jumps out at me and kind of takes me back to where we first spoke, the fastest turnaround time. Uh, I know a lot of people kind of just glance over that, but that kind of jumps out at me. Why is that important, and how does that find its way into paragraph one of your bio?
No, it's a good question. I think what happened is when we first started the business, there were a lot of companies producing custom socks in 30 to 40 days. And what happened was that was the industry standard, but clients are in a rush and clients need their socks pretty fast. We service a lot of trade shows. So companies go to trade shows and they're giving away the socks. And we just noticed that the timeline in which they needed the socks, because they weren't pre-planning the buy that far in advance, was super short. So we decided that we wanted to have a quick turnaround time with a very highly streamlined process to be able to get the orders in properly and produce them properly. And then, of course, we ran into the issue of being able to produce with all the colors that we wanted to produce with. So that was the second challenge that we had was getting those colors, and then we solved that. So we have 7-day turnaround time to your door, plus all the colors, which makes for a very strong program. And then, the clients that call us and they need the socks within, 7 days, five to 7 days to their door, we're able to accommodate that. And we're able to do that because it's a very streamlined process that we put them on, and everybody's on the same process. So as long as everybody sticks to the same process and we're doing the same thing over and over again, then we're able to accommodate those requests. And we noticed that in the market really responded, and people were impressed with this turnaround time, but mostly impressed with how easy it was, because the 5 to 7 day turnaround time requires that it's easy. So we really brought something new to the market, and then we saw that the customers responded, and it was good for everybody. It's even good for us because we don't need to be holding these deals for 30, 35 days. We want to get the socks out as fast as we can, so that they're using them. And then, of course, companies are reordering quickly.
I love that answer. There's a few things I want to highlight. First, when you start there, that clients are in a rush, that regardless of
Yeah,
business, you're going to hear, how about yesterday? And, that's probably impossible. But understanding where there are bottlenecks and having, second thing I want to highlight, having processes in place that will
yeah,
identify where they are and then ideally make them more efficient going forward. And not just settling where your competition is, that it's here's the industry standard. Well, why is that? Can we do better? Can we provide a similar or even greater product at a faster time? So I love that answer, and I'm pretty sure that's what we geeked
definitely.
out for quite a while when we originally spoke. So,
Yeah, I remember we spoke about that. Yeah, you were very interested. So great.
so kind of going backwards there, socks. How did you decide that's where you wanted to be, or how did you end up in the sock business?
That's a good question. So I started off in the necktie world. It's kind of
Okay.
a little bit of a story how I got into the necktie world, but I was a retailer of neckties, and I sold neckties to TV studios, and I sold neckties to TV shows. Of course, you'll remember the show Suits. I sold quite a few ties to them. And I was manufacturing these neckties in Italy, in Como, Italy, where the silk was from. So I really learned how neckties were manufactured, and Italian manufacturing specifically, the pros and cons of Italian manufacturing. And I began to become very obsessed with it. I went to a factory in Italy where they were producing neckties, and they were 6 or 7 generation family, people who kind of worked in that factory. In other words, their grandparents and their great grandparents worked in that factory, and their kids and their grandkids worked in that factory who have now grown up. So I got really into the level of care and level of love that they put into it. And then as neckties started to fade out and I transitioned from retail to the more B2B world here, we got into custom socks, and there was definitely a road to do that. There was a lot of people who were asking us for it. We saw a need for it in the market, because people wanted to give away high quality gifts at a trade show that were sustainable. You know, you're not just throwing them out like a pen or something, and socks definitely fit the mold there. And we went straight back to Italy. We didn't want to go to China or Turkey or any of these other countries. We wanted to go to Italy. We knew the manufacturing over there. We knew the passion that they had. And we found a family-run factory in a small town in Italy that had the same kind of heritage and same kind of more integrity and same kind of love for the business as we did in the necktie business. So we partnered with them, and now fast forward 4 years, 5 years later, and their factory only produces socks for us. It's basically a factory that just produces Socrates socks. So that's how we're able to get to the 7 days together with our volume. We work with them on a daily basis, and we've almost become family now. So it's a really good partnership, and we're really happy we chose Italy because of that family run mentality and the love that they have to produce products. They look at things differently than you would think. They really love the product. They take a lot of pride in it, and you know they want to do as best as they can to produce the best possible product for every client that orders.
I love that answer that you've got your supply chain that aligns with what you want for your end product. You know the quality, especially with the previous life and ties. The thing that kind of jumped out to me there, I think ties and both socks, and you kind of a lot of different things in clothing, but you pay for what you get, and that there's a
Yeah,
inherent higher
yeah,
quality. And once you get used to, it's like, wow, this is really well made, or this has lasted 12 years. And
yeah.
um, I don't need to get into why that is, but how do you convince people that no, it's worth paying 2, 4, 5x because you get a superior product? Does that come up, and how do you communicate that to your customers?
So we definitely have a premium product model because when they hear made in Italy, the first thing they think is the price is probably higher than the price that they would pay in China. And it is. It's definitely a little bit higher of a price, but it's not as much as you think. And when you add in the 7 day turnaround time, when you add in the quality of the product, and when you add in all-inclusive pricing to their door and everything, it actually is very comparable to China. And the reason we're able to get that is, again, because of the volumes and because of the amount of shipping that we're doing out of Italy to rates. So we are selling a premium product, and it does come with a certain respect for the product. But sometimes I tell the clients, like, you don't necessarily want a deal. And it sounds weird to say, but because I said the reason you don't want a deal, you don't want the cheapest price or the middle price, you want us, who's like upper middle, let's say, is because you want the job to be done right. These are B2B clients, they have the budgets, they want to impress their clients, they're trying to land business in their own business. So, cutting the corners and getting lower quality or getting the job done that maybe 50-50 is going to be done right or wrong, you don't want that. You really want a higher quality product. In retail, when I was selling the neckties, it was unbelievable because the gentleman or the wife or the partner who was buying their friend a gift for the gentleman for the ties, they would just feel the product, and it really would stand out. You could feel. I always say to my sales staff in the retail store, just get the customer to touch the product, because if you can get them to touch the product, you have like a 70% chance of selling the product because it's such a higher quality product. When they knot it and they see how it knots, and when they undo the knot and they see how it comes back because of the way that it's lined properly and everything, the product will sell itself. Now we're selling online. When we get a referral from another client, or when somebody has actually worn our socks, obviously it's an easier sale. But we definitely sell based on the quality of our design work, because there's two aspects to the sale. There's the product that we're delivering and the quality of the design, because it's all custom. And we're, the strength of the brand, reputation in the market, and then, the quality of our website. So all of these factors together help the sale. But I would say that, there's a famous line, I think it was in retail, that, paying a premium price only hurts once, because you're getting a good product, versus sometimes when you buy cheaper products, it sounds good, but then it breaks down and you have to buy it again, or, it's not done right. So there is a cost to that as well. So it has been a road to be able to sell the product properly at a little bit higher of a price. I'm not going to say we're overly priced, but we're fairly priced. But we've definitely overcome a lot of those obstacles. I don't hear it as much, and I think that's just because of the strength of the name in the market now.
I like the way that you bring up the line, you don't want a deal, because that makes sense. If you're putting your name on this or you're using this
Yeah,
as marketing, you're right. You don't want something that's defective, poorly made, that's going to fall apart when you hand it over or shortly thereafter. Um,
yeah. No,
the
definitely.
other
You want to be proud of it. You're putting your brand on it. They work very hard on their brands. Some of these mid-tier, mid-sized companies or large companies or even small companies. We work with little small mom and pop shops who are very proud of their brands, and when they hand out the sock, they want it to be a great sock. So, there is an investment required. When you look at it on a per sock basis, it's very fair, and you never know where that one sock can go. People have told me that they've given out the sock to a customer and, like, 5 or 7 years later, they're still hearing about the sock, they're still hearing about the gift that they gave. So it's a very good tool in that regard.
Indeed. And you mentioned the story about having customers touch the tie in the store, and that is powerful.
Yeah,
Having that in your hand and you can feel it.
no,
Being
it's
an online
unbelievable.
being an online business, you reference the power of kind of referrals taking the place, and then having that well-designed website that, well, if they put this much time into the design of their website and it looks this good, I'm sure the products can come out that well. So how are you, I don't know, not replicating, but how are you replacing that in-store feeling for this
Yeah.
business?
So it's all about trust. So when a company comes to us, they have to trust that we're able to guide them through this process, that they're not wasting their time, and that when they actually, transact with us, that we're going to be delivering this product properly. And then there's all these other factors like communication along the way. Make sure that we're communicating to them when the boxes are picked up, and if there's a delay, why there is a delay, and how we are resolving this delay. And then in the small 1% chance that we're currently at 1% error rate. If there is an error, what are we going to do in that 1% to fix the error? We have to stand by our products. And all of that comes from dealing with thousands and thousands of customers a year. And, the review process that we go through, the feedback that we get from them of what we did right and wrong. But really, I think on the sale, when we're going through the sale, it's all about the confidence. How well are we interacting with them? My goal for every customer, where my project managers, well, they'll tell you, and my salespeople will tell you, and my designers will tell you, they're not on the client facing side, but they're on the back end producing the assets, is we want to create an experience for the customer where they really feel like, wow, they went overboard to get my business. They really serviced us well. And that's different than customer service. Sometimes I think customer service is a word that you use when things go wrong. It's almost like reaction, a reactive resolution, versus customer experience is kind of like proactive. So we want to create this really great experience for them every time that we're interacting with them. And that experience will build trust together with our great website, together with the fact that we have great designs, and then together with this whole program that we've put together. That usually is kind of like a combination, it's almost like an ingredients, for the final product. But that is kind of what you need to sell, because nobody knows you in theory. If they just go on your website, they don't know you, and they have to trust you, and these are large sales. Some of these sales get very large. And I get the question all the time. People ask me, how are these people going online and just doing that? And I'm like, it's because we build trust throughout the journey that they're with us, and building that trust is very important. If you don't build the trust, then it's not going to happen.
I mean, you had me at process, but when you get into the customer journey and understanding what it's like along the way, that it's not just hope they land on my website and buy, that it is a full experience, that I want to make it easier for them. I want to be in there, in their shoes, in their socks, and walk them from A to Z so they
Yeah,
know that I've
that's a
thought
good
about this.
analogy.
And I want to make it as simple and as streamlined, and I don't want to have any barriers. I love that very much. Um, Kind of going back, you mentioned being in ties, you mentioned being in retail. Um,
Yeah.
I would assume, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming socks are very competitive. That especially, well-made socks. That's something that you can get in a lot of different places, and you've seen a proliferation of brands over the last few years. How did you get started and know this is where I want to be? And then how do you keep up with the market?
So right. So there's two different markets. First, we were in the business of selling socks at retail, selling in stores and creating a brand through that. and we did well. The company name was Socrates. It was out in Canada. It was quite big in Canada at one point. We got into the United States a little bit. But really where we now focus is a specific niche in custom socks, obviously. So it's really servicing companies. And when we first started that business in 2018, there were only about 3 or 4 players. And again, they had the 30 days and we had the 7. And then they had, they were stocking 50 colors, and then we were able to do all the colors. So we had some key advantages over the competition. And we really were a company that everybody wanted to go to because of these key advantages. Everybody was producing in China. We were made in Italy. That helped the conversation. So we were able to differentiate yourself. I never just wanted to go into a market and try to grab up my piece of the pie. I always wanted to have a reason of why use us, like why should I use Socrates? Because I can give my business to the other 4 companies. And now there are 20 companies in the market or 25 companies in the market. So why would I use Socrates over all these other companies? And I'll give you an example. One time we had a customer reach out and they CC'd two of the companies. So it's kind of like, hey, go at it. Whoever wins the deal wins the deal. And
Wow.
we produce the sock board, we send it to them, and then they go back and forth with us. And then all of a sudden they say, okay, we want 500 pairs. We invoice them. At the end of the deal, I called them because I thought that was very interesting that they put both of us on. And they said, and this maybe took 2 days to do. And I said, oh, whatever happened to the other company? Did they get back to you? Did they, are you also close to closing with them? Are you doing both of us? What's going on? And they said, oh, they haven't even emailed us back. And I realized in business, you do have a head start when you just actually do the right things. Email people back quickly, answer their questions properly, give them full transparency on where you're at in the process. Just be there for them along the way, and you actually have a bigger head start than you might think from a lot of other companies who maybe don't prioritize that. And I kind of realized if I just stick to that over the long period of time, I'm going to be able to build for Socrates a very large customer base, because no matter what happens, we definitely take care of our customer. Even in that 1% chance that the sock goes wrong, no problem. We redo it, we send it to them, no questions asked. So there's kind of like that mentality. If you have that mentality in business, I think, you have a really good chance of being successful if you're in a market that's, not, impossible to compete in. Those type of businesses that are just next to impossible. So we have a niche plus competitive advantage plus that service aspect. I think that equals almost like, a little bit of a chance to be successful.
And that's such a great story because I feel like some of the best personal and business advice I ever got was just show up. That that
Yeah, just show
that's
up. Yeah.
just that's what sometimes all people need is to know that you'll be there. Whether and then as you say, it's the speed. I have a product that you want, and in simple email exchange. Well, some businesses, which perhaps your competitor was like, this, I'm not doing this, or this is not something I want to get into. It's just you
Yeah.
demonstrate your process because show don't tell is the other great advice that you can have kind of in any sphere. It's like I can tell you all day long how great we are, but if I don't have anything to back that up, forget about trust. But if I can display, put on display what you're going to get for your experience with us, what kind of response we're going to have. Here's the products in your hand as quickly as possible. You can really speed up that trust relationship.
Yeah, I tell you another quick story here. I one time ran into a few years ago. I'm about 20 years out of business school now, but I ran into one of my professors a few years back, and we were very close in business school. So he asked me. He said, "So are all the things that we taught you in business school, you're running your own business, you have employees, you have customers all over the world. Is it really helpful? Like, does it help?" And I go, "Yeah, when I'm making a spreadsheet, and breaking down financials, that's helpful." But I said, sometimes, I got to tell you, it's just common sense. You didn't have to necessarily go to this fancy business school to know to email back the customer. You don't have to go to a fancy business school to know that I need to have some kind of competitive advantage over my customers. And you don't need to go to business school to know that being able to produce a great product faster than the competitor is an advantage, and that you could probably make things work from that. So, as much as the business school did help in a lot of ways, it also, I said that there's just common sense that maybe business school doesn't necessarily teach you, that if you think about it, it also helps you. So he liked that answer. He thought that was interesting.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because it reminded me you've brought up a couple times the 1% error rate. And the thing that you have attached to that is communication. Hey, we messed this up and here's how we're going to make
Yeah.
it right. That you can't pretend, you can't ignore, you got it. If you're going to handle it, common sense. This didn't come out what you had asked for. How can we make it better? So I love that.
Yeah, and it's not about saying, there are times that the customer signed off on the proof and, maybe it came in wrong based on what they were expecting. We just got to stand by them. In the long run, these customers are going to stand with us, so we're going to stand with them and we'll just redo it, get it right. We want everybody leaving the deal with a good taste in their mouth, feeling good about their order. Because they did trust us. There was 20 other companies they could choose from, and they chose us. So when they choose us, we want them to be happy about that. And that's really, it doesn't just apply to socks, obviously. This is any business that you can do. You just have to stand with your customer. Customers are too hard to get. I don't care what business you're in. They're too hard to get to start, playing the blame game and then trying to like get out of things. You just have to stand by your customer, make it right, and then let the long run, figure itself out. Because in the long run, you will succeed with that mentality.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned customers, you talked about starting off in retail and then niching to the kind of business to business model. How did you get there? Or was it
Right.
was it obvious or was there kind of a pivot or what did that look like?
So in our case, it was almost, it was almost the world had told us that we had to do it. So in our case, we had an epic flood in our store. I built this
Oh,
store over 10 years. It was an incredible retail store, very high-end menswear store from downtown Toronto. It was like a very big go-to place for a lot of the executives in Toronto. And in 2018, there was a bar right above us, and they flooded our store. And at that time, I thought that my career was over. I was very nervous to be honest because it took a long time to build that, and I knew that 1 year away from having to rebuild that store was going to be very damaging to my clientele and my momentum. We were already doing some custom socks, and then I got really lucky. And the girl, the woman, the young lady who was running my store, she was the manager. Turned out that she had an art degree from a very top college, and she was able to do sock design. So, now I had a full-time sock designer at first, before I was using freelance. So me and her, we just went, started the business, put up a website. If I showed you what that website looked like, you would be, you might kick me off this podcast. It was terrible. Okay. It was
that's how you start.
absolutely
That's good.
terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Actually, she told me a line. Somebody told me, this girl, Becky, she told me a line. She's my number two in the company now. She said, if you're not embarrassed by the work you did a few years ago, then you haven't really progressed much. You should be embarrassed. It should be bad. And, and now our website's obviously a different story, but we just put up a website. We started the Google ads. We didn't even know what a Google ad was at the time. And we just had to figure it out because we didn't have a retail store where people were coming into. We had this sock brand, Socrates, and we just figured it out to the point where we then exited retail completely because the online business, the B2B business was just hit so much fire. And then we had to figure out things like hiring and operations and, systems and automation and, proper CRM systems. And, it's very easy to service 10 clients a month. I could send them a tracking number and I can do all that. But when you start to get to a few hundred, 300-400 clients a month, all of a sudden, you can't send the tracking number. You can't manually make invoices. You can't, email every customer. There has to be some automation, but then you have to balance automation with not looking like a robot. So you have to have the personal aspect with the automation to be efficient. And that's where that balance comes in. It's very tricky balance. I'll be honest, it is a very tricky balance. We struggle with it a lot. But I think, we're always working on to improve, but we have to make sure that no matter if we have one client a month or 1,000 clients a month, that everybody feels like they're our only client and we're taking care of them. So that's the goal of us. And that's the goal in any business anybody should run, I think.
Uh, I absolutely love that answer. And I could ask you system questions all night. I will not do that because nobody wants to listen to that. But I do want to highlight art degree, 1 point, MBA, maybe not 1 point there. So if you got an art degree to become useful in business, your MBA, maybe not. Um, who should
Yeah,
who
exactly.
should who should buy custom socks or who is not a Socrates client yet that should be?
So I think that I get a lot of questions about this. I live in a neighborhood with a lot of doctors and professionals, and they're like, "Who is buying custom socks?" And in my world, everybody buys custom socks. That's the only people I know, right? But so I'm always trying to think of it from an outsider's perspective. The sock is a tool, and what is it a tool of? It's a gift. It's a gifting item, right? So you're communicating to your employees if you're giving it to them, or you're communicating to your potential clients if you're giving it out at a trade show, or you're communicating to your clients that, hey, I thought about you and I care about you. And here is something that you're going to wear, and it's something that everybody needs socks. And here is something, yeah, it's branded to my company. Usually the branding is very light these days. We don't go too heavy on the branding. We want it to be a fashionable sock first, and then a branded sock second. And it's something you're going to wear, and something you're going to remember. So any company that wants to feed back to their clients how important they are to them, or feed back to their clients that they thought about them, or that they want to give a gift and get some engagement going with them, it's a really good tool to use to just draw engagement. And also, we have a lot of studies that we've seen with our clients, current client list, who have used the sock at a trade show, and they've noticed higher ROIs because they spend 50, 60,000 to go to the show, and then the extra money they spend at socks just gets them so much more people coming to the booth to get the sock, to start a conversation, to begin the process of trying to convert them to clients, create a funnel. So it's really meant as a magnet. It's really meant as a gifting tool for companies who are trying to really build business, or feedback to their employees how much they care about them.
That's good to know. And everybody needs socks, and every business can market themselves better and can outreach to their client or desired client better. So there's a very good match. I'm looking up here. We're already almost at time, which I'm shocked at. But before we
Yeah,
go,
it goes fast.
what uh, what didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
Well, I think we covered a lot there. I think one thing that I think people should realize is that it's not just custom socks, and it's not just how we do things. It's more about a mentality of business, of taking care of the customer, which I think is important, and how you can really, no matter what business you're in, you can really use a customer experience to be if that's all you did right, I believe, if that's all you really did in a really well manner, if you really mastered that, and it takes time to master it, you will get lots of leads, and you'll get lots of referrals, and you'll have lots of business, because you'll just be known as the company that has excellent customer service and excellent customer experience. So I think that that's important. It's not only applicable to our niche, it's applicable to any business, whether you're in the staffing business, or you're in the product business, service business. You're doing SEO or Google ads for companies, because I use these service providers, and sometimes I'm holding them to very high standards because of the standards that I have for my company. And you could see when you're just being treated as a number versus an actual valued client. It's very easy to see. So I would say that my advice would be to any entrepreneur, or anybody who starts a business or a podcast or any product business, that, focus really, really hard on building a customer experience that cannot be beat. And, then worry about, the Facebook ads and Google ads and all this stuff, because it's just easy to not worry about that. And then when the customer actually comes to you, you're just dropping the ball. And I find that sometimes I see really, really good service, and until they sign me up as a client, and then they almost disappear, and you're like, wait, where did you guys go? So I think that's important in any business that you start, or any business that's functioning, is how important it is to create that experience for the client.
Yeah, that's a good point. Where was that guy? He calling back every time. He always was
Yeah.
there but now I signed up and no
Yeah,
one.
it's like we're dating, and now we're married, and it's like there's no communication after the marriage, right? It's kind of weird in a way, right?
Yeah, and no, and you're right. If you nail the customer experience, and in your case, you've got the product to back it up. It's like that's what I want. I have reliability, I have a good product, and I have to put my name on it to give it to others. So very well done there. Sam,
Yeah.
where can our listeners find Socrates, and where can they learn more about your journey?
Sure, we'd love to hear from you. They can simply go on to Socrates. That's Socrates. It's like the philosopher Socrates with a K. So SocratesCustom.com. And then, you'll see everything about us on the site. You can reach out there. And, we work with companies all over the world, large companies, small companies. It's really special, the kind of wide client base that we have. And we'd love to hear from your listeners and from people who want to produce great socks for their clients and employees.
Very nice. We'll be sure to post that and we'll get out of here on this. If you can share, or what comes to mind when I ask, what was the strangest or most bizarre order you ever got as far as a custom order for any of your clients or customers?
Yeah, I mean, we got an order one time from clowns. It was like a clown association, and we just did all of these socks for clowns, and they were like knee highs, and they're really colorful. And it's just like when it went to Italy, they weren't really sure what was going on here because they were so obnoxious colors, and they were just like knee highs, and it was just a very specific type of sock, obviously, because it's clowns, and it had these smiley faces on it and everything. And they just kind of, I remember the owner of the factory is a very serious person. He called me and he's like, is this for real? Is this a real order? I'm like, yeah, yeah. The clown business is really looking for some socks to differentiate their clowns from other clowns. So I thought that was funny. I don't know. I thought it was funny, but we get, some other orders are interesting. Like they're not necessarily weird, but they're interesting. Like we did a big sock order for Marvel, for a movie. I thought that was kind of cool. And the kind of detail that they wanted on the sock was interesting. So yeah, companies from all over the place, nurses and, there's a lot of doctor offices for the compression sock. And yeah, it's kind of like, it kind of goes all over the place. We're getting right now, there's a big movement on yoga studios. So they want some pretty funky stuff. Like yoga
Mm.
studios is looking for crazy stuff like grips and this and that. So yeah, we definitely are getting some crazy requests. One guy's wife called me afterwards and she said that she loved the socks that we did for this big company, but she doesn't want that sock because it has the company name on it. Can I send her just like blank socks? I thought that was pretty funny, actually. She doesn't want to wear the company socks, so she just wanted to wear blank socks. So we sent her some blank socks.
There you go. Listening to your customers and delivering them what they want, what they're asking for. Sam, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for joining us. We will post the information in the show notes, and I do look forward to doing this again.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, and much luck to you as well, and congrats on your success on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Thank you.